In a landmark decision that will reverberate through the halls of government for years to come, the Supreme Court has struck down President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs, fundamentally shifting the balance of power between the executive and legislative branches, and setting a powerful precedent for future administrations. The court ruled that the president cannot unilaterally impose major trade barriers under the guise of a national emergency, requiring explicit congressional approval for such actions. This decision reaffirms the system of checks and balances at the heart of American democracy. This dismantles a key pillar of the Trump administration's America First economic policy and ends years of volatile, tariff-driven trade relations that have affected industries and consumers alike. The case centered on whether the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977 allowed the president to levy billions in tariffs without Congress. Legal experts and lawmakers have debated this issue for years, highlighting the tension between national security and economic oversight. The justices concluded that only Congress, not the president, holds the constitutional authority to regulate commerce and impose taxes, reinforcing the legislative branch's vital role in economic policy. The immediate effect, global tariffs, including those targeting Canada and Brazil, are invalidated, sending shockwaves through international markets and prompting swift reactions from trading partners. The administration is now forced to seek legislative approval or abandon its trade agenda, marking a dramatic shift in how trade policy will be crafted and implemented moving forward. As the nation absorbs this historic verdict, attention turns to the practical consequences, potential government refunds, changes in consumer prices, and a renewed focus on the constitutional separation of powers that defines the American system of government. President Trump's tariffs marked a radical break from decades of U.S. trade policy, invoking the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to justify broad duties on imports. Historically, the IEEPA was used for targeted sanctions, not sweeping tariffs. Critics called this a dangerous overreach, arguing the Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the power to regulate trade. Trump's administration claimed tariffs were vital for national security and economic revival, even linking them to combating drug trafficking and warning of economic disaster if overturned. Opposition was fierce. Businesses, legal scholars, and lawmakers argued the president was bypassing Congress and rewriting trade law. The controversy intensified with new tariffs on Brazil and Canada, seen as politically motivated and punitive. These actions fueled concerns about unchecked executive power, setting the stage for the Supreme Court's intervention. The court's ruling now curtails the president's ability to wield emergency powers for sweeping economic measures. The Supreme Court faced a pivotal question that would shape the balance of power between Congress and the president for years to come. Did the IEEPA, a law designed to address international emergencies, truly grant the president sweeping authority to impose massive tariffs on his own, without direct approval from Congress? Supporters of the president's actions argued that the law's broad language was intentionally flexible, allowing the executive branch to act decisively in times of crisis or national emergency. But opponents countered that Congress never intended the IEEPA to be used for sweeping trade reforms or to bypass the normal legislative process. Congress has historically passed specific laws to regulate tariffs and trade policy, and many saw the use of a general emergency statute to override these carefully crafted laws as a serious constitutional overreach, threatening the separation of powers. Central to the case was the major questions doctrine, a legal principle that requires Congress to speak clearly when authorizing actions of vast economic or political significance. Lower courts had already ruled against the president's tariffs, citing this doctrine and emphasizing the need for explicit congressional approval. The administration, however, argued for an exception in matters of national security, claiming that emergencies sometimes require swift, unilateral action by the executive branch. But the Supreme Court rejected this argument, reinforcing Congress's constitutional role even in the sensitive realm of foreign affairs and national security. The decision marks a significant check on executive power, reaffirming that only Congress, not the president acting alone, can authorize such sweeping and impactful economic changes. The ruling clarifies that emergency powers, while important, cannot be used as a shortcut to bypass the legislative process for major trade or economic policy decisions. This sets a powerful precedent for future conflicts over the separation of powers, ensuring that the fundamental checks and balances of the Constitution remain intact. The Supreme Court's majority opinion anchored its decision in the major questions doctrine, emphasizing that only Congress can authorize transformative economic policies like global tariffs. The justices found no evidence that the IEEPA was meant to grant the president the power to impose broad import taxes, noting its historical use for targeted sanctions. The court rejected the argument that national security concerns justify bypassing Congress for such sweeping actions. The ruling makes clear claim of national security do not give the executive a blank check to impose nationwide taxes. By striking down the tariffs, the court reaffirmed that major policy shifts must be debated and enacted through Congress. The decision is not about the merits of tariffs, but about who has the authority to impose them. This restores a traditional understanding of the separation of powers in American government. The Supreme Court's decision triggered immediate polarized reactions in Washington. Critics of the president celebrated the ruling as a victory for the Constitution and congressional authority over trade. President Trump and his allies condemned the decision as a threat to national security and American workers, accusing the judiciary of overreach. The ruling complicates the political landscape, especially for House Republicans who had shielded the tariffs from legislative challenges. Anti-tariff Republicans are now empowered, while party leaders must navigate a divided base. Congress is set to vote on resolutions to overturn the national emergencies that justified the tariffs, now with the court's reasoning behind them. Lawmakers may pursue reforms to clarify and limit presidential emergency powers, aiming to prevent future overreach. The stage is set for a new legislative battle over the balance of power. The economic impact of the Supreme Court's decision will be felt from family budgets to corporate boardrooms. Consumers are likely to see lower prices as tariffs are lifted, easing inflation and reducing costs on everyday goods. Many businesses, especially those reliant on imports, welcome the stability and predictability the ruling brings. However, the government now faces the challenge of refunding billions in collected tariffs. Domestic industries like steel and aluminum, once protected by tariffs, must now compete directly with foreign producers, facing tough adjustments. The decision reduces political risk for companies investing in the U.S., encouraging long-term planning and investment. While some sectors benefit, others will need to adapt to increased competition. Overall, the ruling signals a return to a more stable, rules-based trade environment. The Supreme Court's decision sends a strong and unmistakable message to the world, signaling a major shift in how the United States approaches international trade. From now on, U.S. trade policy will be shaped by Congress, not by unilateral presidential action, marking a return to the constitutional balance of powers. Allies like Canada and Brazil, who were recently targeted by tariffs, can expect a rapid de-escalation of trade tensions and a more collaborative approach to resolving disputes. This decision paves the way for a return to more predictable and stable international relations, fostering trust among America's trading partners. The ruling shifts the focus of foreign governments from the unpredictability of the White House to the deliberative halls of Capitol Hill, where trade policy will now be openly debated, scrutinized, and negotiated by elected representatives. This promises greater transparency and stability in the policy-making process, though the process may be slower and more complex, as consensus must be built among many voices. The decision does not end debates over trade deficits, tariffs, or protectionism, but it places responsibility for these critical issues squarely on Congress, demanding thoughtful and accountable leadership. America's partners will watch closely to see if lawmakers can craft a coherent, long-term trade strategy that benefits all sides. The ruling offers a renewed chance to rebuild alliances, strengthen diplomatic ties, and restore faith in the U.S. as a reliable and principled trading partner for the global community. The world now looks to Congress for leadership on America's economic future, awaiting the next chapter in global trade relations. The Supreme Court's decision is a defining moment, recalibrating the balance of power between the President and Congress. By ruling that sweeping economic measures require explicit legislative consent, the court places a lasting check on presidential authority. The administration must now halt tariff collections and process billions in refunds, while affected industries brace for change. The decision redirects the debate over trade policy back to Congress, demanding deliberation and compromise. Globally, the ruling offers a chance to repair alliances and restore trust in the U.S. as a stable trading partner. The court's message: major policy shifts must come from the branch most accountable to the people, Congress. The Supreme Court has not chosen sides in the trade debate, but has defended the democratic process itself. America's economic future is now firmly in the hands of its elected representatives.